Hey Adventurers, so today's going to be another book review. This is going to be for The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. This is book 4 in the Wheel of Time series. So this is, as with pretty much all fantasy books and all the other books in this series, it's a high fantasy and an epic fantasy and about every other subgenre you could possibly think of, not really, but lots of other subgenres as well. So The Shadow Rising is book 4, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. I already mentioned that. Many people say that this is the book where things start to get really good and where he takes the series away from being an homage to Tolkien and starts doing his own thing with it. Before I get into the rest of this review though, I'd just quickly like to say if you're liking what you're seeing from an Erudite Adventure, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. So I had a hard time with this book, coming out with that right away, because that was the primary takeaway from this book, was that I had a hard time reading it. It took me nearly a year to finish it. I think it was 51 weeks by the time that I counted it. And I read the first 30, it was like 29% or 28% or something like that over the course of nearly a year. Or probably, I guess it was probably like 48 weeks that I spent trying to read the first, not even third of the book. And I really had no desire to continue reading it. So I was so bored and just infuriated by the characters. Nothing interesting was happening whatsoever. So eventually I finally just caved in and requested the audiobook from my library, which I don't know how long it took to get there, but eventually I got that as well. Once I got the audiobook, I was able to get through that first third the rest of the way, and after which I finally started gaining some investment and interest in the book again. I had a hard time with that first third. I had part of why I say that I caved and requested the audiobook was because I really like reading big epic fantasy series physically. I'm a slow physical reader, and so sometimes I just don't even worry about it. But with this one, I was like, I'm gonna try and read this whole series physically, because I think that I'll get the most enjoyment out of it that way. But I couldn't do it. I could not do it with this one. I was like, alright, I either need to get the audiobook and push through and see if I'm going to enjoy it, or I'm just going to DNF the series. And I didn't DNF the series, I got the audiobook and pushed through it. But let's continue here. So there's absolutely some cool things that happen in this book. And once you get through the frustration of that first third, then you can start enjoying the book. There was also just a ton of stuff that I couldn't stand. Any of the chapters with the female character POVs were just the worst. And I hate saying that, but it's true. They were the most infuriating characters I've ever read, and had their chapters been just completely cut or severely trimmed, I probably would have enjoyed this book way more than I did, and the series as a whole, because even as I've continued through the series and even looking back at the first 3 books, there's a lot of stuff that I have not enjoyed in the series. It's been a chore to get through. And with this one, it was just not a great experience. It was just not a good experience reading this book. Had I not gotten the audiobook and been able to push through that first section, I already mentioned this, the likelihood of me DNFing the series was very, very high. So it's a good thing I got the audiobook, because I was able to push through. But that series, if a series is pushing me to DNF it that hard, there's issues with the series. And I know a lot of people say that there's issues with the series and admit that there's issues with the series. And a lot of people who, especially the people who hold this as their favorite series of all time, say, yeah, there's issues with it. But if you can't even read the series, then there's more than issues with it. Anyways, let's continue here. As it is, I really don't remember a ton about the ending of this book now. Part of that's because I've since read another 4 books in the series or something like that, and so events are starting to get jumbled a little bit. So that's part of it, but I've just kind of forgotten what happened in this book. I had to go read a plot summary to remember what the events that took place in this book were. But even with my frustration with the girls in this book, everything that was about Rand or Matt or Perrin was far superior. Especially heading into the Waste and starting to flesh out that part of the world a bit. There was some really cool sequences in the Waste, and with all that kind of stuff. Perrin's storyline I really enjoyed in this book, with the exception of the Fael stuff, which again frustrated me. But other than that, any time that it was about the 3 guys, I enjoyed it. overall, this was a hard book for me to get through, and because of that first third, there is no possible way that I could give this a 5-star rating. Not right now. Maybe on a reread, I would enjoy it more, but not this first time. There's no way that a book that you don't enjoy the first third of can be a 5-star read. I don't think the ending was enough to justify a 4-star read, honestly, either. So honestly, I think that it's a 3 or a 3.5 star for me, where this one sits. It was okay, but the ending could not make up for how frustrating that first third was. I'll put it that way. So anyways, that is my review for The Shadow Rising. Thank you guys for watching, and Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.